Going live.
É, isso
You're
vai
live.
ser bem rapidinho.
Vendo, segue.
Não, eu não postei.
Mas acho que é o mesmo, né?
Agora sim.
Tá. All right. So, good morning again. So, now that we have a little bit of more understanding about opioids, cannabis, and the overall drug addiction problem or issue, I'd like to talk a little bit about alcohol and alcohol addiction and how alcohol addiction has become a social illness. I think based on a little bit of research, and it's not only in alcohol, but it's our duty to talk about drug addiction, because all those drugs have a serious implication in our society, and more importantly, in our moral evolution. So today I would like to cover four areas that I'd like to bring more information to all of you. So first, why is alcohol a social problem? So I'd like to provide a little bit of a context of the reasons why and the impact of alcohol addiction in our society. We'll be focusing on Canada, but we can extrapolate and can expand the data. Of course, the numbers will be different, but we can expand that to other countries as well. What are the reasons behind alcohol consumption? What are the social, psychological, and spiritual causes of drinking? And what are the physical, mental, and moral consequences of drinking? So why is alcohol a social problem? So the Canadian Centre of Substance Use and Addiction has done a lot of research, and from last year they provided some key factors that I thought can give us a good understanding why this is a social problem. So here in Canada, alcohol is the most common drug used by Canadians. The risk use of alcohol is still the most prevalent among young adults. So we are seeing, and when Sonia showed some statistics from cannabis, alcohol also is on top of that, is another issue that we need to be aware among our young adults, especially between the age of 18 and 24. In 2017, the rate of hospitalizations entirely caused by alcohol, which was 249 per 100,000, was comparable to the rate of hospitalizations for heart attack. So and we can even think about the costs to our health system because of the abuse of alcohol. And almost 15,000 deaths in Canada, representing 22% of all substance use attributable to death. So almost 15,000 people dying, and I think this data is again from 2017, due to alcohol abuse. So I think that paints a picture of how this is a problem and how this is a concern to our society. And actually, when we even think about the rate of hospitalization, if we compare to the opioids, the rate due to alcohol is 13 times higher than opioids. So when we put all the drug concern, the drug issue in our society, is a very important thing that we need to be aware, that we need to talk, that we need to reflect on why we're behaving that way, why we're needing to use that drug, and what are the consequences, not only for myself, but to society in general. And I want to expand a little bit on the most common drug piece. It's another statistic from 2017. So the top 5 substances used in the past year by Canadians, past year, and that in this case 2017. So if you think the top one, and just to paint a little bit more of a picture of numbers, for the young population, 15 plus, but younger than 19, 78% consume alcohol. So that gives us an idea of how much alcohol is consumed in our society. Second, cannabis, then cocaine, and some other drugs there. But no matter what, from the young adults, 15-19, 58%. Young adults, 20-24, look at the drastic increase, almost 85% of consumption. It's the top one is alcohol. And the 25 plus, 80% consume of alcohol, and how this is the leading drug. And we can draw an insight here. But why? Why is this the lead one? Is because it's easier, right? It's considered as illicit, and we're going to talk a little bit more about how society encourages and how society encourages even to the increase of alcohol consumption. And I thought, because we are in a very special circumstances in our world right now with the COVID-19. So the government of Canada, now it's not working anymore. The government of Canada did a research on how Canadians are coping with the COVID-19 situation. So it was a research between March 29th and April 3rd. And we can see that the increase of alcohol is the fourth kind of way that the Canadians are coping with the pandemic and with the struggles that we are having in this difficult times. So 20% increase of alcohol consumption from the ages of 15-49, 7% increase of ages 50 plus, and overall 14% increase on alcohol consumption during this pandemic. There was a little bit of a different research that tells why. So what are the reasons, when they ask in that survey, what is the reason that you have increased your alcohol consumption? And most of it says that it's because I'm bored. The boredom effect. Or they don't have a regular schedule. They struggle, or the stress, or the amount of pressure that people are feeling. We can think about losing a job, or not being sure how to cope with the possibility of losing a job, how to deal with dealing with a child that doesn't have school. So it's interesting how the population and us go to some of the external and the short-term solution that we're going to talk about, and alcohol becomes the most easy short-term solution that people can find. And if you think a little bit even deeper, if we think about the reason why we are going through this pandemic and the opportunity that we are being provided to really take that time to be introspective, to think about what do I need to work on, how take advantage of this time to do self-reflection and think about my purpose in this life. We're some people that are struggling decided not to take advantage of this opportunity, and even worse, numb all the conscious and numb the opportunity that we have with the consumption of alcohol. This is just for Canada, but there is a lot of study from the UK as well, from Australia, from the US. The rates, especially from the business side of it, the increase of alcohol selling or the revenue has increased drastically. So there is another a layer of complexity when it comes to alcohol consumption in this difficult time.
I wonder how was the statistics after April 3rd? Because this was between March 29 and April 3rd, so we had the highest of quarantine after this date. Mm-hmm. So I wonder if it was even higher after that.
Yeah, I think we'll be able to, after this go phase down, and when the government is able to do more research, we'll be able to compare and see if it increases or decreases. But there is another survey that actually says that 12% of the alcohol, for the people that were researched, 12% said that their alcohol consumption decreased. I said, that's interesting. Why is that decrease? It's very preliminary. We cannot draw a lot of insights because the number of people researched, it's not very big. And I think the research was done a little bit after April 30th, but they say that they are not drinking, they are drinking less because of the lack of social gathering and opportunities to socialize. Mm-hmm. And then you're going to see the importance. I was kind of happy with that 12%, because I think 12%, maybe it's a time for us to consider how society, and when we're gathered, how we are pressured to drink alcohol because of a social image. But I thought that was interesting that they said, okay, I decreased my consumption because I'm not socializing anymore. And that was a top reason, but the second reason was because I want to keep up with my health. And we know through the research, if the damages that alcohol causes in our body, with this virus, if my immune system and my system is damaged, the chances of more complications if I get the virus, it's even bigger, right? You are at risk with your immune system or your whole system being damaged by alcohol consumption. So I thought it was a good reflection for us to see those numbers and compare alcohol in this time of crisis. But how does our society incentivize alcohol consumption? So there is this concept that Alirio brings from his talks from Spiritizar, and it's actually a subject that it's being studied from all over the world, that is this glamorization for alcohol. And I stole some of the pictures from Renata last year. But the way that the business and the marketing efforts to make it look very cool, right? The design of bottles and the design of the ambience and the image perceived of alcohol is you are the coolest, you have power, or you can afford to pay such super high prices to acquire those bottles of alcohol, and you can have that social status. And there's this whole concept that the society pressurizes us. If you don't drink, you're not cool, and then you're boring. So there's an inversion of values related to alcohol that is very concerned, and it's important for us to be mindful. But another thing that I thought it was very interesting is today we, in the era of social media, we have those what we're calling influencers. People that use their profile to influence, and I think I have some concerns with that word already, influence. They have so much power on those that are watching them, and they are using their platform to promote not the real values that we should be promoting in our society. And those influence, there's a study in Australia on the Victoria Health Organization that they're using more and more. Actually, the alcohol companies are using them more and more to promote the consumption of alcohol. And if you can see in the pictures, it's how cool is the life, how happy those influencers are because they're drinking alcohol. And one of the researchers said that they said, we also know that young people who like or follow alcohol brands on social media are twice as likely to drink at risky levels than those who don't. And if you think about a lot of those audiences are the young people, and the young people are taking that as a role model. So that's something for us to consider and to be aware, especially parents and the whole family, to be aware and monitor some of how kids and young adults are consuming the internet or the social media information. And not only the social influencers, and you can see some pretty famous people, Leonardo DiCaprio, and with some of the marketing and advertising showing that if you have that, if you drink that, you have the power. Or even you can look at me, you see I'm a powerful and well-known person, and I'm taking advantage of this. So it's very, very important for us to consider. And Joanna says that it's a lot of this, and as we saw one of the doctors from Australia saying that the chances are twice as big for the audience to consume if they look on social media. And Joanna says that the whole alcohol consumption and the problem that it brings can start with an innocent aperitif, right? Which is actually unnecessary. But if it is repeated so many times, it becomes what? A necessity, right? And as the quantities increase, the connection becomes an absolute domination. And that she says on a book called After the Storm, or Depois da Tempestade. So it's a big thing for us to be aware. Again, we are not condemning or judging. It's to be aware of what is happening outside our house, and how easily is for anyone from young adults to older people to consume that information. That information can be consumed in like seconds, in one click. But what are the reasons behind of alcohol consumption, and what drives me to consume alcohol? So the majority of time we use alcohol, and we can expand to any other drug, is to overcome something, right? Maybe in the first picture here, I don't feel good about myself, and I want to be as beautiful as that woman in that advertisement. Or I'm so stressed. I'm taking care, again, during this pandemic, my kids are not going to school, I have to educate them all day. At the end, I need that drink to relax me, or I need that drink for all that stress go away. Or I'm sad, and that drink will bring me happiness. Or and so many others, right? Or if I'm working and I'm tense, I can solve a problem. That alcohol will give me the power or the courage to solve whatever I'm facing. Or, and I can remember when I was young, teenagers, if I'm a little bit afraid or shy to approach girls to date, and if you drink, you just get off the edge and you get that courage to approach. So there's always that something that we wanted to overcome, and we use the alcohol or a drug to do that. But what is that something, right? We can draw that something is if I'm shy, or if I'm having a hard time with not being able to do a work, complete a task, what is the virtue that I'm trying to develop, right? So I'm replacing all the efforts that I'm invited to put towards developing a virtue, self-confidence, and so many others, patience, compassion, and I think that, okay, I take a pill that will develop that virtue. So that's something that we need to be mind of. And we need to ask, why do I need to use that drug, in this case alcohol, to develop something that actually doesn't need any external piece, any external help? It's just already within us. And I was watching one lecture, I'm full disclosure, I'm a big fan of Rosandro, and he was doing some lecture about dependence and alcohol and drug consumption, and he said, actually, we have this common sense that drinking is such a strong male attitude, right? I'm good, I'm a big man, and I can drink. But actually, he says, a strong attitude for anyone, it doesn't matter if it's a male or a female, is to face the realities of our life without the need to numb our conscience on the weekend. To face life, right? If we reflect the person that requires the use, and he says, if we reflect that the person that requires the use of alcohol to express their importance, and is invited to stop and think internally, what is so empty within me, within him, within her, within myself, that existential emptiness that is required, that external validation, a big expensive bottle of water to show that I'm worth something, right? So it's something for us to reflect.
Where are our values?
Where are our values? Absolutely. And why do I need that external validation, right? To develop, to feel at peace, to feel confidence. And we know that the drug, it's so shorter, it's just for that short period of time, and it's an illusion because it's not sustainable. It's an illusion that you solve whatever you're trying to solve with that instant reward, but that will end. And the consequences will be even worse, right? Instead of a true reward of our effort to develop what we are invited to develop. So it's a temporary solution. It's an illusion that is actually even more harmful for us.
Yeah, because tomorrow we are going to need more and more.
Yeah.
And we don't know what is the tolerance that we are.
Exactly.
What's the limitation of our tolerance.
Mm-hmm.
And this can bring us very serious consequences. Exactly.
So Joanna mentioned, again, in the Existential Conflicts, her book, some of the causes, right? There is, I'm anxious. If I'm anxious, I am going to take drink something that will cause that illusion. And what is that illusion of that it will calm me? It's because you drink and it's instant, you're getting that euphoria. I'm so happiness, and that causes that illusion that I'm going to be calm. But I'm not. I'm just hyper in the use of that substance, but I'm not calm. Actually, I'm kind of suppressing and numbing my conscience, and I'm not achieving the calmness that I'm pursuing. Or maybe most of the times I want to avoid any kind of conflict. Maybe I'm too shy and I need to drink to avoid that shyness. Or maybe I'm stressed or an emotional instability. Or I'm jealous. Or I feel inferior. And if I drink something, maybe I'll feel that I have that power and feel better or feel as good as other people. And masochism, when people want to hurt themselves, disorders. Continue, again, I think this courage is such a big piece in terms of substance abuse. It looks like the drug or alcohol gives that illusion that you will be able to do something that you are not able to do when you are without the use of that drug. And especially for our young adults, breakups, right? We decide that alcohol will make me to go through some breakups or any unpleasant memory or situation will make it a little bit better for me to go through it. And what we know that if I'm going through that situation, I'm invited to learn something, right? And if I drink that, I'm going to impair my capability. And I want to talk about alcohol impairs our capability of discernment, impaired our capability of making a decision. If I'm not able to make a proper decision, how I'm going to learn what I'm invited to learn in the situation that I'm going through. So I think that's a very important reflection that we need to make. But what's the reality of alcohol consumption? So we know the first picture is very disturbing. There are so many cases when parents abuse alcohol and ended up hurting children with their angry behavior. We've seen cases about fights because we lose our we lose our temper, we lose our capacity of thinking, and the emotions are so high. The effects of the drug in our brain transforms the way that our emotions work that we lose it, right? And we take some very extreme reactions. And a small thing can lead into like a big fight, right? And can cause from simple just a fight into taking someone's life, right? And we know the impaired driving, right? If we drink alcohol and we know that alcohol reduces our capacity to think, our capacity of decision making, how are we going to be able to conduct a vehicle, right? And we know that accidents caused by drinking are such a big problem, not only here but in the whole world. And we know that the impacts of substance abuse, alcohol abuse, damages first us, right? Because we are causing harm to our own body, to our own immortal spirit, but also causes harm to the people that are around us, right? In this case of family, with children, spouse, because the spouses, children, we love that person that is being abusing of alcohol, and we would like to help that person, but we know we cannot save that person. And when that person is under the influence, that can cause some harm to us as well. We can cause harm to other people if you get into an accident, and we can hurt and take someone's life. So that is from a materialistic perspective, or even if I'm drinking and not able to perform my job, I might lose my job. And then the family that depends on the income that I bring will struggle because of that addiction.
You never harm yourself only.
Yes, yeah. And in addition to that, we have the spiritual consequences as well, right? The energy or how we are in synergy, our thoughts. If we have good thoughts, we are going to connect to good spirits. However, if we are under the influence, and we know, we're going to see if I have time to talk about a case, we will never drink alone. The spirits that are disincarnated and still need that feeling or that pleasure of drinking alcohol will be with us, right? And sometimes they will influence us, but it's always our choice to make that decision to drink it or not.
When I saying, I remember my parents giving me and my siblings watered wine, a little bit of wine added to a glass of water and sugar to drink as juice on some special occasions. And I'm sure they did not think it could be harmful. That is how they were raised. Good to know more about the consequences so we can make more educated choices.
Absolutely, yeah. I think there's no, as we've talked, guilt will never take us anywhere, right? It's important that, okay, if someone did something wrong, now with knowledge, we can change. We can learn and change and do different. Maybe with for us or our kids, or even if someone asks something, oh, I'm a friend, I'm thinking about doing this with my kid, dipping dipping his, what's the name of the chupeta? Pacifier. Dipping the pacifier into wine, for example. We can say, based on my knowledge, this is not recommended. Well, but one point that I would like to bring is, I was reading a short, seeing on YouTube a short passage from a conference in Brazil, and the lecturer made a very good distinction. Today, society has this relationship with alcohol since like ages and ages ago. And he makes two distinctions: what is common and what is natural. It's common, right? Things we see frequently, people drinking, people abusing of alcohol. But what is common is not natural. The divine laws that guide us are our roadmap, our guardrails, that if we follow, we will be able to achieve that happiness. And nowhere of the divine laws there's a requirement that alcohol is a necessity, right? There's nowhere, and we are not saying here, and that's the beauty of the Spiritism, we're not saying you don't drink, you do this, you do that. No, we have our free will to decide, but it's important to decide based on knowledge, right? It's common, but whatever is common might not be natural. And if we follow the divine laws does not require us to use of alcohol to do anything, right? I thought that was a good distinction between natural and common. And what happens, Joanna says, if we, I need courage, and then I need a drink. And then, that helped me for a while, but then I need more, and then I need tomorrow. So the connection of alcohol enslaves the mind and poisons the bottom. So that enslaves is that addiction, right? Because we need more, and we need more. Because we need more of that adrenaline, more. And when Sonia mentioned, instead of us taking advantage of the natural hormones that give us that pleasure, we resource ourselves on the external piece. And that becomes that addiction and enslaves us. So Joanna continues some of the reality of the alcohol consumption. As we saw, the addiction destroyed homes. Users committed horrific crimes, regrettable and shameful violence, cutting short millions of lives that could have been dignified through the work of the user and abstinence. And here is, if we know ourselves and we understand that why I need that drug, what I'm trying to achieve, right? If I'm drinking that, there's a purpose. I'm trying to do something with that drug. And if we understand the period that, I need that for courage, for example. Let me self-reflect. Why do I need courage? And the time between that first need into that addiction, the abstinence is one of the best preventions. Because if I need that and understand why I need, I said, oops, if I need courage, if I'm using alcohol to get courage, let me try and not use alcohol and try to use my own resources, my natural ones, to do what I'm trying to do to get courage. So that period, if we are able to prevent and understand ourselves and practice the abstinence, is one of the good ways to avoid addiction. So the effects of alcohol can be felt in two stages. One that I just mentioned, the euphoria, that disinhibition. And then after that, the one that depresses. We get the lack of psycho-emotional control, the lack of coordination and sleepiness. And that second stage is the one that is one of the most harmful for us. So, in one of Federação Entre Dois Mundos, it's a program from the Federação Espírita Brasileira. They were talking about alcohol, if alcohol is a drug, and I saw that they made a very good connection between alcohol, free will, and responsibility. So, as I mentioned, alcohol reduces our ability to practice the discernment. And how important is our discernment in in everything that we do in our lives? Because it's through the discernment virtue that we're able to make good decisions. And good decisions even, should I go this? Should I take this drug or not? And if I'm under the influence, I'm going to impair my decision-making capacity. So even though I have my free will, however, am I going to be able to use my free will properly if my decision-making is impaired? It's such a logical explanation. I was like, yeah, absolutely. If I'm using alcohol, if I need to make good decisions, and the good decisions impair my decision-making capacity, impair my ability to use my virtual discernment, I'm doing a disservice to myself. Right?
It starts with the first attitude. To do a good decision, to not taking alcohol in order to do the decision.
Exactly, right? And I said, it's really interesting. Super simple, logical. It's like step by step. Need to make a decision, and am not able to make good decisions with alcohol. So,
I'm not doing it.
Again, we have free will. We can decide whatever we want to do, but I think it's important for us to think about that. Reflect, and if I make a decision that I need to drink, I need to be mindful. Okay, I will drink, but the consequences are I'm not going to be able to make good decisions, right? And the good decisions can be even driving or work or anything, right? So it's just being mindful of that. Here again, not saying. And there's a lot of questions in the Spiritism movement. Is there a safe amount of drinking? And it's interesting. I thought there's no yes or no, right? It's up to us to decide to use our free will, but to use our free will using good information and being knowledgeable of the consequences. And then after that, he said, okay, but if I made a decision and then I decided that I'm to drink and then something happened, car accident, is there an extenuating circumstances by the use of alcohol? I said, for this mortal spirit, don't worry about it, you were under the influence. No. Because we were able to make a decision to drink, and while we were under the influence, we are still the same immortal spirit. We're us, right? And if I have an action, I will have a reaction. And that reaction will be my responsibility. And it's so beautiful how the law of free will and responsibility are so connected. We can make a choice, but good choices will have good results. Bad choices will have bad results. Simple as that. Some of the spiritual causes of using alcohol. We know that there is usually, not always, a history from the past lives with alcohol abuse, where the spirit contracted serious debts with other spirits. Those are some cases. In some times, when offender and offended meet, the latter, the offended, may stimulate the first to fall back in the old addiction. But not always, right? Always we have our free will. Of course, there's not like a one single formula, right? There's case by case. But most of the time, we, even if we're under the influence or obsession, we have to remember that I created the environment as well. It's a two-way. I created the environment to be obsessed as well. So we need to be mindful of the energy that we bring and the spiritual companies that we bring when we decide to take those decisions or decided to drink. So with alcohol, as well with tobacco and other drugs, there is a connection between the incarnate using and the discarnate, who misses the sensations addictions cause them to feel. When the incarnate uses, the discarnate vampirizes the sensations. And I think I want to show, the images, right? So there's a lot of stories about, in the spiritual world, how the discarnate obsess and how they want to feel the same sensation that they used to feel when they were incarnate. One of the a very common one is the case of Claudio from the book Sex and Destiny. Very short, very summarized. André Luiz goes to a house, to Claudio Nogueira, I think was the name. He observes that Claudio was sitting there and he was reading and he was smoking. And André Luiz saw there was a bottle of wine and he could see the energy and the alcohol exhalating and going out of that bottle of alcohol. And then two spirits enter the house, the living room, and they go and tap on Claudio's shoulder and I want to drink. And then Claudio stands up and go and have a glass of whiskey or wine. I can't remember exactly what was the beverage. And then even before Claudio goes and experiment, the spirit was able to kind of tickle his throat just to encourage and for Claudio to drink even more. And when Claudio was about to drink, the spirit that wanted to feel that sensation, similar to the first picture, it kind of connects with the perispirit of Claudio. And they actually take the same shape, same height, and once Claudio drinks and even gives that spirit can feel that sensation, right? And then Claudio drinks, he sits back, and the other spirit comes, hey, I want some more. So he stands up again and have another drink, so the other spirit can also have and experiment that sensation. So after that, the two spirits leave, and then André Luiz is very smart and say, okay, let's see. Did that spirit remove the free will? Like André Luiz goes close to Claudio to analyze his mind, or I don't know exactly all the mechanisms, but he was able to conclude that no, Claudio still had his free will to decide of drinking or not. It was not impaired. He suffered the influence, but it was still up to him to decide, should I do it or should I not do it, right? So again, como falou, orai e vigiai. Pray and watch, right? Always that state of mind.
Actually, the spirits, they stimulate what we have inside of ourselves. So the will, the desire for drinking that Claudio had inside him was stimulated by those spirits.
Yes.
So nothing is created.
It's always us that
always us.
Provide whatever is necessary, and we decide to go and make that decision or not. Mm-hmm. And there are even other cases from the liver of Voltaire, and the bottom picture, which is very graphic, where it's kind of a tentacle of spirits that actually attach to the perispirit of the incarnated, so they can suck all the energy of that drug consumption.
It looks like they are attached to the chakras.
Yes, yeah. And actually the tentacles ended up damaging the perispirit of the incarnated as well. So so this was very, I like the graphic. This is from The Guardian, the newspaper from the UK. It was an article about drinking in the COVID and how alcohol impacts a lot of our body system and very important parts of our body: liver, heart, mouth and throat, brain, lung, stomach, right? From heart, of the time of drinking, it changes our cardiovascular system. It can increase heart rate, mouth and throat. When alcohol comes contact with the pharynx and larynx, once ingested, it increases the risk of damage of the cells. The damage of the cells can lead to cancer. Liver can build up fat, and there is an inflammation in our liver. Can cause hepatitis, cirrhosis in the brain. Can impair our balance, our reflex, our judgment, lung, stomach. So many impacts that it invites us to think about when making a decision of heavy alcohol consumption. Some physical, mental, and moral consequences from Joanna de Angelis. The impairment usually doesn't last very long, but can go through three stages when drinking alcohol: excitement, depression, and coma. So it is rare, but it's possible for alcohol overdose. So in the excitement is that euphoria. It's the time that we have the hype, where we see the effects of the drug into our body. Frees the patient from their emotional conflicts, repressed during sobriety. It doesn't last long. She says between 1.5 and 2 hours, but that all depends of the quantity that we're consuming. The more we consume, the longer will be, the longer will last.
I guess it too depends on the organism.
And the organism as well. Yeah,
each one.
Yeah. Depression. The patient moves unsteadily, oscillates between sadness and happiness, sweats profusely, gets nauseous, and throws up. We lose the control of our brain. Again, what was just saw, the cardiorespiratory arrest. Our brains, it's all confused. Our brain can forget how to breathe. And if we don't breathe, we will die. Then come numbness, a kind of sleepiness, the alcoholic coma. At this stage, the cardiac collapse can lead to discarnation. It slowly progresses, another consequence, the consumption slowly progresses to intellectual and memory problems, emotional numbness, and also behavior problems. People get more aggressive, right? Again, virtues, lose patience so easily, lack of compassion, right? You see the damages in our development of our virtues. And especially for the long time drinker, right? Our body starts to weaken because we're damaging the vital aspects of our body. Patient looks pale, tired, or has liver problems, or can catch infections and pneumonia easily. Now think about COVID now, especially pneumonia, lungs. Look at the impacts or how weak we can be in this time with this virus. So when delirium tremens starts, it's extremely hard for the patient to recover sanity because of serious problems in the central nervous system and problems in the livers, as I just mentioned, kidneys, pancreas, stomach, intestine, heart, due to the excessive alcohol consumption. It's our whole body being poisoned. Sometimes the patient ends up with alcoholic dementia. At this stage, they are close to death, but because their organic functions have been depleted and their bodies can't keep working. It's very serious. And then it's interesting when we put this together and then we go back to our statistic and so many of us consuming, it's mind-blowing the impacts. It's mind-blowing the impact spiritually our body. It's mind-blowing the impacts on society. The amount, and even material aspects, the amount of money that's spent from the government in health systems and programs to prevent. What if we didn't have that and those resources could be used to a good cause? Some point of reflection as well. I want to end with two questions and the role of the immortal spirit. So question 645 from the Spirit's book. When a person is surrounded by vice, doesn't it the impulse to commit vile acts become almost irresistible? And the Spirit's answer. The impulse is strong, but not irresistible, because you can sometimes find great virtues within yourself despite being surrounded by vice. Spirits who remain virtuous in the midst of evil temptations have acquired enough strength to resist temptation and fulfill the mission of exercising a beneficial influence on those around them. So it is possible, right? It is. We can offer help. We can offer information, knowledge. There's a lot of programs globally that can help with this vice, but it's important. We cannot save that person, but we can give information. We can pray, and we can treat that person as our neighbor without discrimination, without judgment. But it's still the role of that person going through this trial to make the decision, to think about what is required from him or her to go through that expiation.
And as you can read here, if we are able to remain virtuous among evil temptations, we can provide beneficial influence to those around.
Yes.
So
that's another way we can help.
That's another way that we can help. Yeah. And if we are well informed, we can provide that information as well to those that are in that process involved.
Not only that person itself, him or himself, but those, and Anna will talk about family, those that are surround that person, right? Exactly. To even give another tool, another point of view, and on how to help. And in the end, another question that I thought was interesting: are an individual's own effort enough to vanquish or to eliminate his or her bad tendencies? Is that my own effort? Is that enough? And the Spirit said, yes. And it's interesting because I got this question from when Rosando said, and he said, I was a little bit mad when I read that answer, because yes, a very small effort. how come it's very small effort? Because it's such a trial, right? And the answer is it's a very small effort. It's often all that is needed. It is the will that is missing, right? A vontade. The will is one of the biggest virtues that we need to be mindful that we are going to invest our efforts in that will to change from one state that's not good to a better state. And it's quite astounding how few of you make any serious effort. So I think to kind of summarize, I think there is a role of that immortal spirit to change. We can provide that information as we're doing here. We can provide assistance in listening, directing to good resources, but at the end, as we saw in 2 questions, it's still that person's main job to do the efforts to make that change. It's important to talk, as we are doing here. Kids, young adults, older people. It's important. We can pray, right? For those. We can, and as I mentioned, remember the divine laws. Charity, right? Indulgence, fraternity with those that are going through this struggle. And that's it.
2 comments?
2 comments.
One from Renata. I think it was regarding the beginning of your presentation, but he says, and also even the research you mentioned, people associate socializing with drinking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Malcolm is saying that more at the end, more in the middle, that there was even a campaign once called "If you drink, think." If someone had several drinks, how hard is it when to think and make responsible decisions? It's backwards thinking. And he also adds, it was a drinking and driving campaign, by the way.
Yeah.
And yeah, Victor is now thanking you for the reflections.
Yeah. I thought that for me, it was so interesting that simple conversation of the video that I watched from the Federação, the logical things. I'm impaired of making a decision. If I'm impaired of making a decision, okay, let's make good decisions without being impaired and practicing this such important virtual discernment. That was a good highlight for me. Yeah.
I would just like to make a comment in the beginning when you were talking about alcoholism with young people and how high the number is. And one of the reasons is also because it's right there. It's at home.
At home, yeah.
Some houses will have like beautiful shiny bars with beautiful glasses, beautiful bottles, and it's inviting. And everybody else drinks, and parents drink. And when there's a party at home, everybody's drinking wine or whiskey or whatever. It looks glamorous to teenagers as well. And unlike other drugs that they would have to go outside the house to get, alcohol many times is right there at arm's reach, at home for them.
The easy access is such a driver and I think it's Joanna, or I can say, or even I think health authorities say, alcohol is the first door, right? It's the opening door of other more serious drugs. Yeah. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Desinfetar.
E aí a gente vai montar a mesa, a gente come na biblioteca, não sei como é que vocês estão se sentindo porque na biblioteca.
Cada um come no seu cantinho.
Pode ser também, porque são 6